I'm going to talk about learning the Shurangama Mantra and a few things that I found very helpful. For this method, you will need a recorder, voice recorder, a tablet with the Surangama. The City of 10,000 Buddhas publishes the PDF version so you can load it onto your tablet, or if you have a Kindle, there's a Kindle version. Or if you don't have a tablet or you don't want to use a tablet, the text. The mantra's in the recitation handbook. So the method is very simple. The mantra, of course, is 550 lines and 5 sections. It's daunting to learn for anyone. But you can make the task a little bit easier with the recorder. So the method that I found works very, very well is you break it up into sections that works for you. Maybe 20 lines, 30 lines, and whatever is comfortable. And recite those lines again and again until you think you're getting it. And when you think you're nailing it, then use a recorder and record what you believe you've learned. And next, after you've recorded it, what's usually good is you record that section maybe 5 or 10 times. Then you have your Kindle or your tablet or the recitation text, the book, and you open it up to the section you're learning and you listen to the recorder of your voice recording the mantra while looking at the text. So of course you'll notice if there's any discrepancy. Then if you notice you're missing a line, pause the recorder for a second and write down the line that you're missing. So let's say you're just beginning and you're missing some of the first early lines. So you write those numbers down, the line numbers down. So you listen. When you've done with your section, since you've recorded it 10 times, and it'll come up again, and you listen again while looking at the text, and you jot down the number again of the lines that you missed. And you do that throughout all of the ones that you've recorded. And then you will notice that, well, line 15, line 10 only came up once, line 25 only came up once, but 15 came up a bunch of times. So that's where you're having your trouble, in that area, number 15. So you pay special attention to that when you look at the text. You recite it again, and you jot down the any lines missing. Hopefully there's none missing. You've got that one that had multiple errors worked out and you've memorized it. Then you just move on to the next section. Now there's something important to keep in mind with the Shurangama Mantra. The whole mantra is interconnected. It means it works as a whole. And I'm going to use the analogy of a vitamin. Now, modern medicine isolates or standardizes, the elements of a plant to make a vitamin. Even if it's a vitamin that's from a natural source, they take that part of the plant or that essence, and they make their vitamins, and they throw out the rest of the plant, basically. So the problem with that in vitamins is that a lot of people aren't aware of is that the so-called stuff that gets removed, eliminated from the vitamin, the main essence that they want for their vitamin pills, no longer has all of those things that the modern medicine thought is useless. But basically, these useless elements of the plant, or so-called useless elements of the plant, are very useful for distribution of the essence itself, which the vitamin is made from. So you get poor absorption of the vitamin because all the rest of the plant that helps that essence work is thrown out when they make vitamins. So that's why it's always best to get whole food sources, with the whole plant, there. Eat the plant, eat the avocado, eat the whatever. So the mantra is sort of like that vitamin. Like when you recite one section and you're trying to memorize one section, it kind of ignores the fact that all the sections of the whole mantra, all 550 lines, are interconnected. So when you learn a section, first get started with your first section and move on to the next section. And as you get, a little further along, you'll have one or two or three sections memorized. Maybe you're going to break it up into 20 sections. That's what I did, something like that. And you get one section down or two or three sections down. Then when you're learning the new sections on your list to learn, don't focus just on that one section. Recite a little bit of the one that's before it, before entering the one that you don't know. Because it's interconnected, it's supported by that one, and you'll find the learning goes a lot easier that way. And so then after a time, and you get the whole mantra memorized, then when you go back every now and then to review it, and you notice that you listen to you recite it on the recorder every few years. You should do this, and listen to the recitation. That's what I did recently, and I found out there was small sections that I was missing. So when relearning those sections, you want to do a little bit on each side of the section because they're connected with that one that you're kind of spaced out on. And it's much more easy to learn. Another thing is a lot of times you'll miss a whole section. When after you've learned the mantra, you may miss a section. And when you're going over it, you notice it on the recorder that you're missing a section. Don't freak out and think you have to learn the whole section again. Usually it's just a cue, one line. For me, it's often just one line that I'm getting wrong and that I jump to the next section. So if you want to avoid that, do what I do. Listen to yourself on a recorder and find out what section you might be jumping, what lines you may be jumping, and write it down. Write the number of the line where you missed down, the beginning of that. And a lot of times you'll find you just missed a cue. One line is a cue for maybe 20 or 30 or 50 lines. And if you miss that one line, you miss all the ones after it because they're all interconnected. So if you keep that in mind, it's what I've said in mind. I have found it very good for myself. I hope you do too. And it's very simple. The most important element in the whole thing is a recorder, so you can record the sections that you're learning and see how you're doing by listening on the recorder and looking at the text and seeing which lines you're having difficulty with. It makes a big, big difference. And you jot those down and you find your weak points. And those become your cues later on for going forward. Those lines that are usually your weak points become your strong points that carry you through the rest of that section. So that's it. It's a tremendous resource to have, you know, the whole recitation book that has the mantra, or you have it on a PDF. Makes it very easy. On the PDF, you know, you can go through and the mantra, and whichever lines you're having difficulty with, you highlight them. And then you go back and you recite it on the recorder. Then you go back listening to the recorder and you recite that section. You see the highlight. Did you miss on that highlight again? Yes or no? If you did, that's your trouble area. If you didn't, then you can erase that highlight and keep reciting again and again. If you notice that your highlight's going to have to go on the exact same one again and again, that's where you're having your problem. And you just focus on the lines close to that one where you're having the problem, because it acts as a cue for the rest of them. So I hope that helps. Happy reciting.